This is a fascinating field, for if you understand it you can truly lead a very fruitful and full life. To truly understand the mob mentality, mass psychology, one must fully understand oneself. In other words, one must be willing to strip oneself to the bare bones and in doing so examine all one's weakness and strengths with equal intensity. One cannot sugarcoat one's weakness and then apply thick layers of honey to one's strength. If anything, one should be more willing to downplay one's strength and emphasize one's weakness, for it's the areas that we are weak in that hold us back and not the areas that we are strong in. School and society teach us a total bunch of nonsense when they state that one should hide one's weakness and manifest one's strength. It's for this reason, the world, in general, has not learnt anything, and it's for this reason that we are still barbarians. The only thing that has changed is the clothes we wear to disguise our primitive behavior. Other than that, the caveman mentality still dominates. I have read a lot of good books over the years, but as far as I can remember, at least going back 12 to 15 years, or more, I have never been so fascinated by a book to the point where I almost felt obligated to savor each and every page. There were books that I would find interesting and tidbits here and there, or several paragraphs or even several pages that reached out and compelled me to go through them slowly for fear of missing something valuable, but never the entire book. The last time I read a book to its entirety, savoring each and every page, was probably in my 20s. I stopped doing this is because I could no longer find any book that was compelling enough to read each and every single page until I stumbled on a very old book. I was at the right place at the right time. I was in small town in Connecticut. I usually take random trips to observe individuals as it helps in assessing what the markets are doing and where they might go, and stumbled upon this small used bookstore. I almost feel guilty for having paid the paltry sum of $1.50 for such a truly insightful book that I went back to the shop and bought several other books. This rather compelling book was written in the 1500s, yet the man who wrote this book, in my opinion, is brilliant, to say the least. He was born several hundred years before his time, and almost all his insights are applicable today. Many of you will want the name of this book immediately. However, we feel that it's best that you read all 3 parts of this essay before jumping into the book. Understand the principles of mass psychology and the book will have a greater impact on you. I would personally rate this as one of the greatest books I have yet read and one of the best in dealing with the concept of mass psychology. This gentleman probably deserves the title of being the father, or better yet the grandfather, of mass psychology. As they say, if one cannot understand oneself, then how can one ever hope to understand another? Off to an excerpt from this rather illuminating book. A young man ought to break the rules in order to rouse his vigor and keep it from rusting. There is no course of life so stupid and weak as that governed by unalterable rule and discipline. If he takes my advice, he will occasionally kick over the traces. Otherwise, the slightest debauch will put him flat on his back and make him a social nuisance. The nastiest quality in a decent man is fastidiousness and a stubborn devotion to the eccentric behavior, and all behavior is eccentric if it's not pliable and supple. Our young man should be able to do everything but love to do nothing but the good. Let him laugh, play and wench with the prince. I would wish that even in debauchery he outdid his companions. So when he refused to indulge in vice, it was not because he lacked the knowledge or power but simply the will. A man should not be ashamed not to dare or to be able to do what he sees his companions doing. Such a one should stick by the kitchen fire. When Socrates was asked, "What is your country?" he did not answer, "Athens," but the world. His fuller and wider imagination embraced the universe for his city. He extended his knowledge to society and his friendship to all mankind, unlike ourselves who look no farther than the end of our nose. The vast world which some men now think is but one among many of its kind is the mirror in which we must look in order to know ourselves in our true scale. And this world, in short, is the book my young scholar must study. Pythagoras used to say life resembles the Olympic Games. A few men strain their muscles to carry off a prize. Others bring trinkets to sell to the crowd for a profit. And some there are, and not the worst, who seek no further advantage than to look at the show and see how everything is done. They are spectators of other men's lives in order to better judge and manage their own. These are my lessons. The man who applies them will profit more than the man who merely knows them. When you see such a man, you will hear him. When you hear him, you see him. God forbid, says someone in Plato, that philosophy should mean learning a pack of facts and discouraging on the arts. Hagizas once begged Diogenes to read a certain book. "You are jesting," Diogenes replied. "Surely you prefer real to painted figs. Why then don't you choose living lessons rather than written ones? It may happen that our pupil will prove to be a contrary fellow. He may prefer to hear a silly fable rather than a wise discourse or the true story of a notable voyage. While his playmates fire to the beat of a martial drum, he may respond to the tub-thumpings of a circus clown. Perhaps he will find it less delightful to return dusty and victorious from a battlefield than stroll home after winning a match of tennis. In that case, I see only one remedy. Even though he be the son of a duke, either his teacher should strangle him at an early hour, or if that can't be done without witness, he should be apprenticed in some nice town to a pastry cook.